Hello and welcome to the Guna Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of what is the Arsenal Tactical Breakdown Show. The first of 2024 with a brand new transfer window open. It took a little bit of time, just over a week, for Arsenal to get legitimately, truly linked with a player that I felt the need to come out and do one of these breakdown shows like we do every single window. And we're here to talk about Amadou Onana, statistically, analytically, and of course with the help of some expert insight. And for our first show on our Tactical Breakdown series in 2024, I'm very happy to be joined by Which from the County Road Bobblers, of course, an Everton-based podcast. And he's going to talk to you a little bit more in a second about what that is. But Which, how you doing, mate? How you doing?
Good to speak to you. Obviously, probably on better terms when it's not one of our best players being linked to a move away. But good start of the year as always for us Evertonians with some bad news. Hopefully, it's not.
Indeed, yeah. I wish it was on better terms, because from an Arsenal perspective, I think it would be a really interesting move. I'm sure we'll come on to that. But before we do, just give the listeners a little bit of a background into who you are and what the County Road Bobblers are.
Yeah, so I'm obviously chairman of a supporter group. Obviously, we've got 20 odd members in the Everton community as such who follow Everton, go to the Everton games. We started our kind of supporter group. We done an anti-racism campaign a few years back when we signed Moise Kean. Got quite a lot of traction, a lot of fundraising around anti-racism, and then we kind of moved on from there to podcasts. So had a lot of people asking, how did the day go? What happened and all that kind of stuff in between. We were working with, show racism, the red cards and kick it out as well. Since then we've done podcasts and I think it's a way of, as you know, mate, it's a bit of therapy and blow off some steam and talk about the thing that we all know and love and sometimes hate.
Absolutely. That's great to hear about the anti-racism stuff. We do a lot of awareness. The listeners will attest to the fact that we do a lot of awareness around that and specifically kind of on anti-racism, homophobia, sexism as well within the women's game too. How have you found that process, interestingly enough? Has it been well received?
Yeah, honestly, like I say, it was a few years back now, but it was fantastic. Moyes obviously was a victim of racism and in Italy. Now, I know his tenure didn't work out too well at Everton, but I think it was important. Moyes Kean was moving to a different country, different culture, and he was quite badly treated really at his time in Italy when he was racially abused. He didn't really get a lot of support, so I thought it was really important for us as a fan base really to welcome Moyes to the football club, to England and to Liverpool. Really to say, look, we'll stand with you against racism. If this ever happens again, then you'd have the whole fan base shoulder to shoulder. And I think it was quite an important message at the time. It was really well received. We received donations from fan bases right across the country, raised thousands of pounds. International fans got involved, and CNN were certainly talking about it on their networks at the time. And Kick Out were really pleased because it was a kind of fan-led movement from the terrace, and obviously resulted in a really important message, which, as you say, all forms of hate and discrimination just aren't welcome. The football's for everyone, which always has been and it always will be, and it's up to us fans, I think, to stand shoulder to shoulder, no matter what team you support, and we can send that message from the terrace, each and every game that, that we should behave in the right way and everyone's welcome at a game of football.
Love it. Certainly attesting to what we've done as much as we can here from an Arsenal side of things with that, and so it's great to see it happening across the Premier League. Let's switch focus and focus in on today's topic, which is of course the delightful news. I'm sure you're glad to hear Amadou Onana has been linked to the move away. I say that, of course, in jest, because he has been, as we spoke on the phone earlier on, one of your most key players since his arrival. Just before we go into kind of what the latest is with it, what was your initial reaction to hearing him linked with the move to Arsenal?
A bit of mixed reactions, really. To say I'd be surprised, I'd be telling fibs if that was the case, because I think if we rewind the last couple of years, I think we lost Richarlison at the end of the accounting period a couple of years ago. We lost Anthony Gordon to Newcastle at the end of January last year, all of which really went towards balancing the books, with obviously our much maligned profit and sustainability, which is a big issue for us Evertonians at the moment. We're really not happy about that, as can be seen with the, not the breach as such, but the severity of the punishment received. So I think there is a bigger picture at Everton at the moment. We are obviously financially struggling a bit. And when I say we're financially struggling, we're struggling to keep in with the rules that are set by the Premier League, which, I still say aren't correct and should be changed. But I think there's a bigger picture of Amadou Onana. Obviously, we bought him from Lille for £35 million. Now, because of the current predicament we are in financially, we had to spread that over a 5-year period. And as you know, I know Arsenal have structured quite a few deals over the last few years, in a similar fashion. Certainly, some of the, I think Pepe, you brought in a similar kind of deal, didn't you, at the time? So you've kind of got to tiptoe around this, and I think we've only paid a small amount of Anana's fee at the moment. Obviously, there's a 20% sell-on fee, whether that's actually on the total value of the transfer or the profits of the, it depends who you listen to. There's two sides of that story of people saying different things. So there's not a huge financial benefit, to be honest with you, Everton selling Amadou Onana, which lends me to a bit of scepticism in relation to it. But yeah, honestly, I would be gutted because he is a key player. I think last season he was a lot more inconsistent. He's picked up consistency this year as he's played more and more football. So I think a lot of Evertonians would be gutted to see Amadou Onana leave Everton if that was the case.
He's a player that was linked to Arsenal as well when he was at Lille. I remember covering the story at the time because I'm good friends with Sacha Tavolieri, who broke the story today, and then of course PJ Colquhoun as well from Nieuwsblad News in Belgium as well, adding more detail to the story around the reported price tag of around 50 to 60 million euros that they would want for the player. I've certainly been able to verify that it would be around 50 million pounds that Arsenal at least really would be looking at, which we'll come on to kind of the finances from Arsenal side of things in a little bit, but it seems a real stretch for Arsenal to be able to do that during this window with our own concerns about profit and sustainability, which has certainly hit Everton, as you say. From your side of things with Everton, and I know you've been doing a little bit of calling around this afternoon, what have you been able to glean from the Everton side of things?
I think, for the listeners, I think it was very similar to what we discussed earlier, which was basically that certainly there's an interest from Arsenal. Arsenal were certainly interested last summer as well. So it sounds as though if you're saying that interest has been a bit more long-standing, that it's never really gone away. I think we all know in football as fans that teams have got a big list of players, in every single position, and they kind of monitor them, and they're always looking at these players. So once you kind of hit, certain metrics, I'm sure that teams are forever kind of reviewing them targets and seeing what can be done. So it comes as no surprise. But I think from Everton's side, that I think the kind of feeling is it's very unlikely that at the moment, if there's any discussions, that it's more between Amadou Onana, his agency, and through Arsenal Football Club, and Everton certainly aren't involved in that process, or certainly it's not anywhere near advanced, as maybe reported earlier on. So very early stages, and certainly not a lot of traction. And I think that just does come down to the fact that it really will be a financial stretch for us. So people are expecting possibly the summer after the Euros for Anana to leave. It would suit Everton to have that bigger period of time. But yeah, no, the kind of feeling is that it's very early days, and they don't see this as at this moment as a feasible chance for it to go through in January.
That's not going to stop us talking about the player and his potential, because there is that small chance this could develop into something more realistic, and we want to be prepared for that.
Tom, I would say that the heavy caveat to that is I would never say never. And as I mentioned before, we've had players leave that we didn't expect to leave in Anthony Gordon and Richarlison. I was stood in Goodison with Frank Lampard, talking about various stuff with our atmosphere group that we were involved in at the time. And he was, certainly not wanting to lose Richarlison, and Richarlison obviously ended up leaving to your rivals. So I would never say never. I think Everton are in a precarious position financially. So when I say at this stage, things can change quite quickly, as we all know. So I wouldn't rule it out if the fee's right. That I certainly think that it's not. It'd be wrong to rule out from an Everton point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right to say that, indeed, and I think sometimes reports get held to account without thinking about the date and time that they were actually published, because in the transfer window in particular, things change so fast and so dramatically. Like an inquiry can be reported and then never touched again. And yet in the reality, what we've heard is that Arsenal are interested, or an approach has been made, etc., etc. And in reality, that was just one message. I can tell people for a fact that clubs do a lot of their transfer business on something we all use every day, which is WhatsApp. So much happens on WhatsApp regarding transfers, and it is amazing how basic it can be sometimes. We think of these being kind of like back in the day being officially faxed forms and stuff like this. It's really not today. There's a lot of inquiries going on. There's a lot of kind of feelers being put out in deals, and stuff kind of creeps through the cracks sometimes, and that gets reported, as has happened with Anana and stuff today. But the player himself, as you alluded to already, is a player that you would all, I assume, be very gutted to lose. What is it that he's really brought to Everton that has made him such a key part of this Sean Dyche side?
Well, I think when we bought him, obviously, I think it was originally through Anthony Barry, obviously, the Chelsea links and Frank Lampard. I think he spoke to Frank Lampard at the time. Lampard was looking to bring leadership to the football club. I think he brought Conor Cody in, Amadou Onana, James Tarkowski, kind of big, physical, vocal leaders. Obviously, Amadou Onana is very different to them two players because, he's early on in his career, but he's already been, this is his third country playing football, so he's played already. He's got quite a lot of experience for a young lad. He's a full international. And Anthony Barry had really kind of flagged him to Lampard to say, look, this lad's a kind of player. I think, if you're looking for leadership as a player, you need to look at, he's got the kinds of full hit that you would expect for a centre mid, and I think, there was a story when he first came to Everton that he was commanding in that training session. He was shouting, and you could see a bit of a clip of him, ordering people to make it faster, play faster. And this is a young lad at the time, 21, coming to a new country, new football club around, quite, Conor Cody, James Tarkowski, Pickford's quite vocal, coming in and really commanding a place already in that session, in his first session. So you could see all these things that people had discussed. I know Roberto Martinez was a big fan, saying, of his ability to pass the ball, dictate, bring the ball out of the back four. So he's a bit of a one-off, Amadou. He's got a bit of everything. There's quite often this discussion nowadays. We used to call them defensive centre mids and attacking centre mids, and how it goes between the double pivots, the 6, the 8, the 10s, and everything in between. But Amadou Onana's one of these football players that I've seen that can pretty much play in any of them positions. He's a bit of a hybrid player. He's very comfortable in possession. He can take the ball on the turn. He can almost flip into gear quite quickly, and bypass 2 or 3 players, when he gets into a stride. Very good passer. He's a progressive passer of the football. I think very recently he was second in the whole of Europe in terms of duels, actually successful duels, and also aerial duels as well. So he's a kind of player that has a bit of everything. I think the frustration under Frank Lampard. I remember being at the training complex and we kind of overall as a fan representative, and they were talking about. We got the pleasure again talking to Frank, and he'd just come out of the office with Amadou. And he'd said that he'd been working on him being more of a presence in the opposition box because obviously, big, 6'4", 6'5", very good in the air defensively. He was trying to, bring that out of him in the opposition box, as you can imagine, that you'd be looking to do with that player. Still only got 2 goals for Everton, so I think there's still plenty that Amadou can do. I think some of them stats sometimes people look at and if he's only got 2 goals, not really got any assists. But there's more to him. It's progressive passing. And what we've seen under Sean Dyche actually is that Lampard kept using him in different positions. Sean Dyche seems to have settled him down. He's given a very clear role in the team. He's been much more defined in the ask of Anana. And he's been excellent. We've seen that consistency in him. I think too often last season we were seeing a 6 out of 10 or an 8.5. And we were never really seeing anything in between. I think he's been there or there around 7, 7.5 most games. And I think his stats back it up. You've obviously got the data in front of you. But, certainly from looking at him from the eye, he's dictating games. He's constantly leading that middle of the park, and it's something that Everton just haven't had for a long, long time, and at 22 years of age, you can see why Amadou Onana had, his ceiling is so high. And you can imagine if he goes into a better side around better players, and he can actually be a bit more, obviously, he's quite structured under Dyche what he's doing in the ask of him, but, if he's given a bit more freedom around, in a more possession-based side, you can just see how he'd go up a level again.
Yeah, without a doubt. That is, I think, the key thing is Arteta in particular loves players of a young age that have already got loads of experience. And you touched on that with the amount of countries he's already played in. You think about Odegaard, of course, club captain already, before the age of 25. And he's played in Spain, he's played in the Netherlands, he's played now in England, of course, and he likes these well-travelled players despite their young age. You picked up on it on a few of the characteristics as well. You mentioned his threat in the air. That shows up in the stats, in the 95th percentile of players in the top 5 leagues with 2.47 aerial duels per 91, which is a really, really good thing. I think Arsenal have lacked sometimes, not aerial threat, because we are a bigger team now than we were. And I think maybe that follows the trend that Arteta has wanted from players. He wants more physicality, he wants more presence. He's wanted Arsenal to be a tougher side to compete against. And Anana, I think, would certainly add to that. Defensively, those tackles in the 75th percentile, interceptions in the 64th. And I did a piece earlier on today on football.london looking at how he compares to Declan Rice. And, he actually comes out higher in terms of tackles per 90 than Rice does. He doesn't in other areas like blocks, clearances, interceptions. But in my opinion, you're talking about arguably the best defensive midfielder in the league alongside Rodri and Declan Rice. So to expect him to outscore Rice in most of those stats is a big ask at 22. I'm curious what you make about where he would fit into that Arsenal 3, because Rice obviously has been playing at the base of a midfield 3 for the majority of this season. Against Liverpool, we saw Arsenal throw Jorginho into the deeper 6 role, and Rice moved slightly further forward with Odegaard obviously at the peak of that midfield 3. But it's not necessarily decided where Arteta wants to structure that 3. I think the future of Rice is not in the 6. I think it is slightly further forward of the 6. I think he can progress the ball really well. But do you think that Anana comes in to play the deepest midfield position, or do you think it would still be Rice in the deeper role?
I do actually. We had a bit of a conundrum about where to play Anana, because obviously just kind of guy is exceptional in that kind of breaker role in the 6. But he does go up the pitch chasing the ball a bit. Obviously had James Garner come in, likes to get on the ball, more of a deep line playmaker, but he can again move forward with the ball. And we almost had 3 players. Then I think Lampard spent a lot of time playing all 3, and we it just didn't really ever work. I think where Dyche has got the best of them, he's played him deeper. So he's played him almost as a 6. And he's had James Garner next to him, both very comfortable on the ball, able to kind of one goes forwards, one sits back, and all that stuff in between. But Amadou Onana, I think, in a very good side would be an excellent number 6. He's a very intelligent footballer. There was a clip going back to the derby against Liverpool where Liverpool took us on the break, and as we all know, Liverpool can attack quite quickly on the break. Salah and I think in between, and Amadou Onana on a 60-yard sprint, kept up with Liverpool's forward line, ended up making an unbelievable world-class save and tackle. If there was such thing as tackle of the season, I think it'd be right up there as one of the best tackles I've certainly seen watching Everton over the years. So I think that without a doubt, he could play that 6 role, and I think, he's very comfortable in possession. Certainly when I've watched Arsenal recently, that your fullbacks are starting to get a lot more involved in midfield. Tomiyasu may be coming centrally. I think that Amadou Onana could prevent that. I think you'd be able to have a bit more width, if you had Amadou Onana and Declan Rice in that midfield position. I think, Rice can explore the field further up and be comfortable that Anana can take up that flack, because he can get around the pitch. There's no doubt about it. He can get around the pitch at pace. I think it just gives you more options, and I think you'd see a better Declan Rice next to him.
Yeah, the pace is really interesting, because I think Arsenal have lacked urgency and a bit of speed throughout their team. I really want Arsenal. I know a lot of people want a striker at Arsenal. I, for one, think that whilst that's important, I think that adding another fast winger is really important for Arsenal as well, because they've lacked a bit of speed in those areas when they've brought off either of Saka or Martinelli. They've lacked that. So having a quicker central figure in the team. Is he urgent with his passing? Does he take time on the ball, or is he quick in transition?
Very quick, yeah. And you kind of see this when he plays some of the kind of Champions League sides. Certainly when he was playing Liverpool, he was constantly coming in, getting the ball, moving it straight away. Constantly looking to kind of turn and move it forwards. So he's very quick in possession. He's not lethargical at all. He's one of these. He can receive the ball because of his gait. Really, he's that big. He can receive the ball in any position, even when there's a player right behind him. And he's quite happy to give it, move, and just keep moving into space. So, you do see him as a very good fit for someone who wants to play possession-based football. And quite often, you get these players who are either a deep line playmaker but can't tackle, or the players that can tackle but they're poor in possession. I think he's a bit of a hybrid in between, where he's very good defensively, but he's a very good passer of the football as well.
We're going to open the floor up for a few minutes to the chat box. So if you've got questions for which, please make sure that you do start to throw them in just before we do get to those questions. The price tag is being talked about £50 million is kind of what's being, I think, testing the waters in terms of the what's come out so far. Is that what you would expect? Is he worth more than that? I know contextually you can say, like, well, to us, he's priceless in some senses because we're in a battle, we really need him, so you can't really put a price on that. But if you were trying to judge in this market what he's worth, is that a fair assessment?
I think from Everton's point of view, certainly the feeling that I've got, of other Evertonians today that have been talking about it as well, like so our Toffee TV channel that we've got. I was listening to the lads before on that as well, and I think the feeling is, you look at Calcedo that's gone to Chelsea for 100 million. You look at Paulinho from Fulham, they're asking 90 million to 100 million. Lavia, similar again, 65, 70 million. So I think the feeling from Everton is that, that we always expected that we were starting to try and adopt a more sensible model where we bring a player in and try and double our money and do the same again, repeat. And that's how you can move forward financially and get out the bit of a hole that we've been in. But I think the feeling is because of the market value of defensive central midfielders. I think that I think people tend to think, fellow Evertonians, that 50 million would be very low for him, and simply because of the sell-on fee that we'd have, the money that we still owe to Lille, I think to make it financially, financially viable for Everton, I think that the kind of feeling of 70 million plus would be more of an expectation, and quite a lot of Evertonians, I feel, from what I've read, would be very disappointed if he was to leave Everton for 50 million, which is not much of a profit from what we've paid originally for him.
What you're saying is Chelsea have screwed the market, basically. Yeah,
well, I think Chelsea started a bit of an arms race, didn't they? We see this all the time, don't we? And the market gets skewed. We've seen it with Van Dijk at Liverpool. And then, United kind of get railroaded into paying 85 million for Harry Maguire. And we do see these kinds, we see these kinds of things all the time. And I think at this present time, there's not a lot of Amadou Onanas out there. People forget how young he is with the kind of ceiling that he's got. So I think the general feel for it to be worthwhile for Everton, and this is me as a fan, Everton, and we don't know what's going on with the ownership at the moment. We're more likely to find out because obviously Everton are under this ownership change at the moment, going through Premier League authority approval at the moment. So we're not too sure, but we're told that could be ratified within the week. It's obviously been rumbling on for some months now, so we just don't know what the owners are thinking. They've got a multi-club ownership model. If it is 7-7 and they're ratified and they're agreed. So from an Everton fan perspective, I think that that we certainly believe that his market value is 70, 80 million plus. But that's us as fans. People might look at that at the football club differently, but I think what the club need to realise is that they would be under a bit of a backlash from Evertonians if he was to walk out the door for £50 million.
And I've seen the suggestion, obviously with Arsenal's own profit and sustainability, there's suggestions of Arsenal needing to be a bit clever in how they might do a potential deal, which could involve a loan with an obligation, of which case I think that would send Everton fans into the stratosphere with annoyance if that was the case. So again, if this does happen, which at this moment in time, as Witch said earlier on, it is extremely early stages, if anything, beyond, just exploration of a potential deal and an inquiry. We'll obviously cross that bridge when it comes. I'm conscious of the time, so we'll do quick fire if we can through these. King says, can Anana play in a ball possession side with his limitations on the ball, or is he best suited in a counter-attacking team?
As mentioned before, I think Anana would be excellent in a possession-based side. He's certainly playing a very specific role under Sean Dyche at the moment, but he plays for Belgium. Belgium are a possession-based football side. He's captain Belgium at in his early 20s. So like I say, he's a bit of a hybrid player, and I think he'd be quite comfortable in a possession-based side.
It's one for both of us. Temi says, why are we signing a midfielder when, Tom, you've said that we are not converting our chances, which means that we need a forward. So I'll get the outside perspective. Are you surprised to see Arsenal go for a midfielder considering Arsenal's key issue has been goal scoring this season?
I think I literally put a tweet up yesterday saying Arsenal are crying out for a number 9. I don't think it's any secret. I think everyone outside looking in can see that Arsenal are an excellent football side. They're creating, some good quality chances. But, I suppose it's even more frustrating for you guys watching the game when you're seeing it and you're just not putting the ball in the net. So, I'm, incredibly surprised. But then again, who you're looking at there, £100 million Ivan Toney, 60 million Solanke. The market value is probably increasing all the time. So it's a bit of a tough one, I suppose, isn't it?
And that is the right answer to the question. And it's worth pointing out that just because there is an interest in a story about a midfielder, it does not mean that there aren't key interests in centre forwards that Arsenal want. This is just us talking about one player at the moment. But as Which says there, the players that Arsenal would like aren't available in January. B, if they were, the price tag it's just not going to work for them. Like Tony, they would, they like him, they're interested in him, but 100 million is not going to happen. Osimhen is the other player as well. That's 100 million plus release clause, not going to happen in this window. He's only just signed a new deal as well. So as I wrote earlier, if you can't get a striker in this window, don't waste the window. Try and go and reinforce in other areas of need if you can. So yes, I get it's backwards for some people to try and get that we need goals and we're not going for a striker. I'd rather Arsenal still utilise the window to the best they possibly can and target players that are still going to strengthen them in areas of need. And the midfield is an area of need. We are in need of refreshing with a younger option because Jorginho, Partey, El Neni are all 30 plus and likely leaving in the very short term. So that is an area that Arsenal will still want to strengthen in. And Anana, I think, would fit what Arteta and Arsenal have been trying to do as well. Let's go to a couple more if we can. The Padican says, what do you think about the rumours of Nicholas Bentner having a stadium statue reveal? I don't think that's true. For some reason, something's telling me that might not be accurate. Let's go to Drunks R Us, who says, if we did get Anana, how much would we get for Partey? I mean, what do you make of the midfield at Arsenal with Rice? I know I got you to touch upon the fact that about where they might play, but Arsenal have been playing mainly with 2-8s. So do you think it's time Arsenal go back to the double sixes, if you like, rather than the attacking players dominating that midfield?
I would, yeah. You've just got to look at the other sides in the league, haven't you? Man City and Liverpool, I think their forwards are almost, just right up the pitch all the time, ready to attack. So I think that it would just give you a different way of play. Everyone looks at things sometimes, as there's only one option. But as you say, if you did slightly tweak that midfield, you made it more stable, it might free up some of your attacking players to get a lot more further forward on the opposition line. I mean, the one that Evertonians was absolutely. I mean, we'd snap your hands off for Reece Nelson and probably Emile Smith-Rowe as well. Two players that Everton would love, to be honest with you, on loan. But
you love Reece Nelson, yeah? I think a lot of Arsenal fans would be surprised that you're saying that. What is it about him that you'd like that would add?
Well, I just think that at the moment Everton have got two different profiles than what Reece Nelson offers. He's a lot more direct. I know that type of player can be frustration. We both had Theo Walcott in the past. We have had Anana Lennon a bit more direct on the line, always looking to get forwards. I always call them the C clickers, because they're always playing on that line and getting through the back. But we've got a Jack Harrison. I think he's a very steady Premier League player. Got a decent level of return of goals and assists, but he likes to cut in, and he's not as direct as you would imagine a winger to be. And Dwight McNeil as well. He likes to come more central at times. So I think. A low-cost option for Everton, like a Reece Nelson, is something that I think the club is certainly exploring, just because they need a different profile out wide for us, really.
Reece has been linked with a move away. I spoke to him yesterday after the game, and we asked him if indeed he was looking at, if he was focused on Arsenal, and he just simply said, yeah. I asked him if actually he feels like the contract he signed in the summer has been vindicated, and he didn't go as far to say that he's like, yes, I'm so glad I signed it. He was very much like, I need to prove to the manager that I deserve more minutes. So it wasn't overly committal for that, but he certainly seemed to say that he was focused on Arsenal. But if an offer comes in, players do look at them. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. There's a lot of broader questions on this, and of course Arsenal's wider transfer window that I think we'll talk about in tomorrow's 8 a.m. show. But Which, thank you so much for taking the time to jump on the channel. It means a lot. Tell people where they can find you.
Good luck for the rest of the season. But County Road, at cbobblers1878 on Twitter, the County Road Bobblers.
Thank you very much, Rich. Yes, make sure you go and find them on Twitter. Of course, I tweeted out the account on at the Gooner Talk TV, so make sure you go over there if you want to get clarification on that. And I'll be back, as I say, tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. If you want to get more information about the Anana situation, there is an article on the Football.London website from me and Luke Thrower talking about that. You can read the interview of Reece Nelson from yesterday's game as well on the website. And as well as that, there's even news and extra information about Arsenal's trip to Dubai, in which I've reported that Jurriën Timber and Thomas Partey are both going to be in attendance for that trip, as well as plenty of other injured players like Gabriel Jesus and Zinchenko. So all the information about Dubai is on the Football.London website, so you can go and read all that there. But I'll be back with you guys tomorrow morning, bright and early at 8 a.m, like we do every single day. See you soon. Have a great day. And as always, up the Arsenal.